Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum is the best salam.
Hi everyone, welcome to lecture number 1 of Unit 4A, The Rise of Islam. Today we're going to find out about one of the world's most prominent monotheistic religions, Islam. We'll discuss the origins of this religion, or where it comes from, and discuss how Islam helped to unify the Arabic people politically and religiously in early history. Today, Islam is the world's fastest growing religion. The Arabian Peninsula is strategically located in Southwest Asia. This is where Islam emerged. This peninsula has served as a bridge or crossroads between Africa, Asia, and Europe, and is often referred to as the Middle East. Islam emerged on this peninsula and quickly spread. Much of the Arabian Peninsula is a desert and cannot support widespread agriculture. Throughout early history, nomadic herders called Bedouins inhabited this desert land. Bedouins is spelled B-E-D-O-U-I-N-S, Bedouins. The Bedouins organized themselves into tribes and family groups called clans. You learned about clans last year as 9th graders, remember? The Bedouin way of life and culture, therefore, still makes up a fair amount of the culture that has emerged in the modern Middle East. Large cities developed along what were called oases, or fertile places with water access, especially those located on the coastal regions. Because of the location to Europe, Africa, and Asia, the Arabian Peninsula became an important part of early global trade routes. There were trade routes like the Royal Road, first set up under the Persians, remember? These routes were part of what was called the Silk Road eventually. The Silk Road was the name given to a massive trade route or series of trade routes stretching 4,000 miles across Asia. The Silk Road began during the Han Dynasty in China, if you recall from last year, around 200 AD. This was during the height of the Roman Empire, just to give you some perspective from our last unit. Trade routes are an important part of history, in that they allow for the physical spread of goods. Back then, physically traveling from one place to another was the only way to spread ideas as well. Think of the Silk Road then as the internet of early times. Had it not been for the Silk Road, we might not have the capability of having drones deliver our products from Amazon, right? Anyway, so the Silk Road allowed for cultural diffusion, and the Middle East was a major part of this route, as well as served as a merging point for the smaller routes within the Arabian Peninsula. A major city that emerged on the Arabian Peninsula was Mecca, spelled M-E-C-C-A, or as many people say, Mecca. Mecca has historically been a place where religious pilgrims gathered to worship. An early shrine located there, called the Kaaba, and that's spelled K-A-A-B-A, but it's pronounced Kaaba, just saying. Anyway, an early shrine called the Kaaba was located in Mecca. This shrine contained idols. There were about 360 ones that had been brought there by many different tribes, and they were worshipped by many people. This is obviously an example of polytheism, or the belief in many gods. But not all Arabic people were polytheistic. There is evidence that monotheism existed there as well. Many Jews and Christians lived in this area by 600 AD. First off, let me just clarify something for you. Arabic is the primary language spoken on the Arabian Peninsula. The word Allah, spelled A-L-L-A-H, is an Arabic word for God. Allah is not a different God from the God that Jews and Christians believe in. So, yeah, I just wanted to establish that first off. Right. Well, many of you already know that Islam was established by the Prophet Muhammad. Muhammad can be spelled several ways. Why? Well, when we spell something in English from another language, it often reflects the sounds that we hear. We spell it phonetically. And since Arabic is a very different language from English with an entirely different script, meaning it doesn't use our alphabet, yeah, imagine that. Not everything's centered around us. Anyway, not everything is going to reflect our alphabet. And so when we try and write something in another alphabet, or actually I'm just really messing this up. When we try and write something from another language in our alphabet, that's what I was trying to say, we have to do so phonetically, right? So writing out Arabic phonetically using our alphabet has produced many different ways to try and capture the essence of the Arabic language. So the Prophet Muhammad's name can be spelled Muhammed, or it could even be spelled Mohammad, mashallah. Wait, did you just hear me say that part at the end? Mashallah? That is actually Arabic, meaning or roughly translating to praise be his name or thank the Lord. It is said in reverence by Muslims after saying the Prophet Muhammad's name, mashallah. But just so you know, Mrs. Malloy is not a Muslim, but many of my family members are, so that's why I'm just sharing this. I feel it's really important to show respect and reverence for all the world's religions, and part of showing respect is learning about these types of things, in my opinion. So you might hear me say mashallah throughout this lecture. Thanks. Anyway, Muhammad faced quite a bit of adversity as a child, which is to say that he sort of had a tough life in many ways. He was orphaned at age 6 and raised by relatives. He overcame this adversity and became a trader. At age 25, he met and married a wealthier older woman named Khadijah, who was also his business partner in trade. Always spiritual and meditative, Muhammad was known to spend hours contemplating the world and meditating. It was during one of these meditations that he had a vision. In this vision, the angel Gabriel commanded him to abandon his other gods and worship only one, called Allah. It is for this reason that Muslims today begin their prayers by saying, and forgive my lack of Arabic here, folks, and my obviously horrible accent, La ilaha illa Allah, Muhammadu Rasul.
La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah.
So what does that mean? It means there is no other God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. So Muslims believe in the same prophets and stories found in the Torah and the Bible. Many of the names are different because, yes, they're in Arabic. Muslims believe that Jesus, for instance, was a great prophet, but they don't recognize him as the Messiah or the Son of God. Muslims also believe that Muhammad's revelation was the most current manifestation or vision from God, and is therefore considered the last of God's prophets on earth. So Islam is really considered the most current revelation in the eyes of Muslims. Okay, I feel compelled to point out a few other things here as well. Many students tend to mix up the words Muslim and Islam. Heck, many adults do too. So listen up. The word Islam in Arabic literally means the submission to God. The word Muslim means one who submits or bows to God. So to put this into terms that you can really relate to, Islam is the term we use to describe the religion, and a Muslim, therefore, is someone who follows this religion. All right, so now let's get back to the historical part of all of this. Once Muhammad began publicly spreading the word, he was often persecuted, and like any new idea or new thing in this world, it's often met with skepticism, jealousy, and a desire to discredit the author or proclaimer by saying bad things about them or, implying that they're somehow wrong. People don't like change. This was no different for Muhammad. His followers were often attacked or threatened by non-believers. It became so horrible for Muhammad and for his followers that they were actually forced to not flee, but they were forced to maybe consider new surroundings. And so Muhammad's going to pack up his things, and he and his followers are going to migrate to a new town called Yathrib, about 200 miles north of Mecca. And, for Muslims, this has special significance because that journey north is now referred to as the Hijra. All right, let me spell that for you. It's spelled Hijrah, and it's pronounced Hijra. So the city of Yathrib, where they went to, or where they moved to kind of, establish themselves, later became known as Medina. Islam soon attracted a growing number of followers, and soon Muhammad was both a political and a religious leader. In the year 630, Muhammad and his 10,000 followers marched back to Mecca. They entered the city, and they really took over the city. They destroyed the idols in the Kaaba, that shrine that I talked about earlier. At that point in time, most Meccans are going to convert to Islam, and they're going to establish an ummah. That's spelled U-M-M-A. An ummah is a religious or Muslim religious community. All right, so Muhammad is going to die in 632, and following that, we're going to see some major splits in Islam, but we'll get to that in our next lecture. All right, so what are the fundamental beliefs of all Muslims? Well, Muslims believe in the 5 pillars of Islam. These pillars represent the 5 obligations or duties that people have. The first pillar is faith in God. That statement that I made at the beginning of the lecture, you remember, there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet? Well, Muslims say this again and again in their prayers and in other rituals to express their faith in God. The second pillar is prayer. Muslims are expected to pray 5 times a day, facing the holy city of Mecca. Many Muslims go to mosques to pray. A mosque is a term for an Islamic house of worship. One of the most famous mosques in the world is the Dome of the Rock, located in Jerusalem. So go Google it. Do it. Google it. It has significance for Christians and Jews as well because it was the site where Abraham was prepared to sacrifice his son Isaac. So go Google it. Anyway, Muslims also believe that the Dome of the Rock is where Muhammad ascended into heaven after his death. Muslims have a holy day once a week on Friday. So just as Christians believe Sunday is the holy day of the week and Jews believe Saturday is a holy day, Muslims center their work week around Friday. So if you go to the Middle East or another Islamic nation, this is typically a day of rest and prayer. Right, the third pillar of Islam is alms, A-L-M-S, or charity to the poor. Muslims believe that, they have an obligation to help those who are less fortunate than ourselves. The fourth pillar of Islam is fasting. During Ramadan, the Islamic holy month, Muslims fast from sunup to sundown. Fasting during this time helps Muslims separate their physical from their spiritual needs. The month of Ramadan is based on the Islamic calendar. Typically, if Ramadan occurs during a certain month during a given year, it will take place the month before on the next year. Okay, that sounded confusing. So if Ramadan occurs in August of one year, the next year will be a month earlier. It will be in July. And then the year after that, it'll be in June. And the year after that, it'll be in May. Get where I'm going with this? So it follows roughly that calendar. All right, the final pillar of Islam is pilgrimage. All Muslims are expected, if financially and physically able, to travel to Mecca at least once in their lifetime. This is called Hajj. All right, it's spelled H-A-J, Hajj. During the Hajj period of time in a given year, pilgrims wear similar, simple clothing, and they collectively worship to show that all people are equal in the eyes of God. All right, other beliefs espoused by Muslims? Well, first, they don't eat pork or drink alcohol. So those are 2 important beliefs that all Muslims share. And because Islam is considered to be more a way of life and not just a religion, there aren't priests or bishops or pope-like religious leaders per se who conduct religious ceremonies. Instead, over time, they have actually produced a scholar class who translate and interpret the Quran. This is a group of people called ulama. Okay, that's U-L-A-M-A. And they include people in local communities called imams or imans. I-M-A-N-S. The holy book used by Muslims is called the Quran, and this can be spelled phonetically as K-O-R-A-N, so you'll see it written that way, or you might even see it written Q-U-R'-A-N, Quran. And again, that's just phonetically representing Arabic. So the Quran is written in Arabic and is considered to be the Word of God. Muslims around the world have their children learn Arabic in order to study the Quran. The spread of Islam is, therefore, going to help educate people throughout history because in order to read the Quran, they needed to learn Arabic. Muslims also believe in a concept called Sunnah, S-U-N-N-A, which means Muhammad's example. Muslims strive to model themselves after the Prophet's submission to God. Using Sunnah and the Quran, Muslims have developed a set of laws to govern family life and moral conduct. And this is called Sharia. It's spelled S-H-A-R-I _a, Sharia. Muslim leaders in history showed a great deal of religious tolerance to both Christians and Jews, whom they regarded as the people of the book due to their monotheistic beliefs. So today we really say there are three major monotheistic belief systems in the world: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. To summarize today's lesson, Islam was established by the Prophet Muhammad around 612 AD, mashallah. It is monotheistic. Its followers are called Muslims, and the Islamic holy book is the Quran. Primary tenets of Islam include the 5 pillars of Islam, and it is the fastest growing religion in the world today. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum is the best salam. Assalamu alaikum is the best salam. Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. Wa alaikum assalam, peace be to you too. It's the best salam.